All right, everyone, welcome. This is the first version of our new show, BullishAF, here with Hashrate Media, and I'm excited that our first episode of the show, we have the privilege of featuring Scott Melker. Most of you know Scott from Twitter, Wolf of Wall Street. He has a background that we're going to get into. I've really enjoyed following you on Twitter and looking at some of your trade setups and interacting with you. I think that we've connected a lot on our passion for college football, the fact that we're both dads. I'm not going to judge you on your football choices, but I'm excited for it to come back no matter what.
I already rolled my eyes.
How is Florida right now?
Well, thank you for having me, man. That's awesome. It depends on who you ask. If you ask me, it's a complete fucking shit show. If you ask most of the people I know, it's YOLO, live your life, and what's a COVID. So I don't know. I know 12 people this week who've tested positive in my hometown personally.
Crazy.
So I would say it's kind of bad. I don't know. I think I definitely err on the side of caution, and I'm a little bit obviously I take it a bit more seriously maybe than the average person for various reasons. But yeah, I would say that there's a real bipolarity in the way that people here are viewing it.
Seems to be, from sitting across the pond and watching it on TV, it's like, it's just crazy to see how things are shaping up in America compared to everywhere else in the world. So,
yeah, well, if you get a reality show president, you get a reality show.
All right. Well, speaking of life being a movie, man, I think that not many people have gotten to experience a lot of the things that you've worked yourself into over the course of your life. I know that you went to Penn, and then basically from Penn, you became a DJ, and I'm sure there was quite a bit in between one and the other, but
yeah.
What was that like? I mean, what was the experience of DJing and traveling the world like?
It was amazing. And, that was sort of like the tail end of it. So it's sort of, it's misleading to pretend that I just left Penn and all of a sudden had this like amazing DJ career. Like anything else, it took a really, really long time to establish beyond just being like a local DJ who made a couple $100 cash under the table a night. And, I delivered packages. Like I was an Ivy League graduate, and I was like working 2 nights a week and literally delivering packages in the freezing cold to like make ends meet and pay rent. So it's not as glamorous as it sounds, but once I did kind of, I guess, get over the hump, it's really a dream lifestyle, but only for, I think, a very short period of time. And it has to be at a very certain phase in your life. And those things lined up well for me, but it's not something I could imagine doing or would take any pleasure in doing at this age or phase in my life. I just, I think there's a lot of misconceptions as to what it's like to be on the road and partying and all that. Most of the time you're just really tired and want to go to bed and nobody will let you. I mean, that's the gist of the experience. And a lot of times people, they're like, wow, you got like, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 to like DJ for a night. But sometimes it's like a trip that takes you 4 days and like you don't sleep. It's not 2 hours of work. It can be a half a week of work if you're flying across the world to get that money. And, but that said, I look back on it extremely fondly. It was everything you would see in a movie and more. It was really an incredible time.
So, dude, how did you get the break? I mean, obviously the glitz and the glamour was at the tail end, but how did you get over the hump and go from being that club DJ to traveling the world?
It came in waves. In 2006, I answered an open audition call for a tour in Japan. I'd never auditioned for anything as a DJ. It was kind of crazy, but it was like for the Michael Jackson of Japan. His name's Toshi Kubota. It was his 20th anniversary tour. So it was like literally a stadium tour in 36 cities in Japan. And like, it was the drummer who was the music director, and he liked me, and we totally vibed out as people. And like, we started jamming together, and I also play some other stuff. I started playing keys there. I was doing some like background vocals, and we just linked. And so that got me out of a financial hole big time. So I was basically in Japan for 6 months. And that also gave me some notoriety where I could play in Asia and do some things like that. But it was kind of funny. I came back and went back to my same like crappy club gigs in New York. And it was really like, I went from being on stage in Japan to that, but I leveraged it into a few more tours, and then I started producing music, and that's really what kind of put it over the edge. Was I had a couple projects go viral, and then people are interested in booking you. You know, and I kind of got on that like college show and opening for people circuit, which was kind of how most of it continued from there.
Well, I mean, one of your tweets, you said you played a show. Was it in Colombia with Enrique Iglesias?
Bolivia. Yeah, I played a few shows with him. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like soccer stadiums with riots outside, people trying to get in and like tear gassing the fans. It's literal insanity in like these countries. And yeah, I mean, I definitely never thought I would be randomly on stage in a soccer stadium in Bolivia by myself, entertaining a crowd, but it happened, and I had quite a few experiences like that. But I never achieved like the top echelon. I was the guy at the bottom of the flyer on a festival, not the big name at the top. You know what I mean? So it was like I was at the show, but I wasn't the star of the show most of the time. Like I could be the headliner at like 1,000 person or less venue, but I'm not headlining MSG.
My first experience of you was actually not on Twitter. You had put out something, Ball and Notes.
Yeah, that was one of the projects that definitely helped.
Yeah, and that was I loved it, and I can't find it on Spotify anymore. I don't know if it's been removed or what, but
yeah. So part of the reason that I retired, besides the other things we discussed, was a lot of copyright and legal issues for sampling and remixing. So like my whole SoundCloud account was removed, and that was the core of what was getting me bookings and attention, right? People go to your SoundCloud, they listen, you see those numbers, 40 million listens, like all this crazy stuff. And when that disappears, all of a sudden it's like you've been erased from the internet. People use that widget to put the music on their blogs and all these things, and all of a sudden it's just gone. So most of that stuff was removed almost everywhere. Then my management agency at the time like put it all back up on YouTube, but it's like directing people to find it. It's a very hard thing. And eventually, years later, my SoundCloud, I was able to put some of it back up. But so yeah, basically most of like all traces of my existence were removed for a few months. And getting it back online by that time happened. The momentum was somewhat gone.
It's crazy they can all just be wiped out like that, right?
Yeah, it's a good lesson. I mean, legally, I was in the wrong. I mean, I guess it's a gray area. It's one of those things where like everyone's doing it, and a few people get targeted and picked on. Like Girl Talk was much bigger than me. In sort of like the same arena.
Yep.
Different because he was a producer. I was, actually using turntables and DJing stuff. But as an example, like he was a much bigger act than me and never had the copyright issues. He had the right lawyer, whatever it was. But then me, for doing the exact same thing, I get effectively like, targeted and erased, maybe because I touched the Beatles catalog. I think was what someone sparked it, and Universal. It was just a bad situation. So, but it came at a time when it pushed me into things that were probably better for me in my life moving forward. So, silver lining, I guess, on the cloud. Also taught me, I guess, the lesson of like counterparty risk, which is huge with trading, which is that if you're depending on some other platform or somewhere that you can't completely control, which is like, that's why we love Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got my private keys. I don't have that for my bank account. So, that it can all be taken away. My Twitter account could be removed tomorrow, and who would care about me anymore? That's part of the reason to have like a newsletter or do these other things offline, secure people, and find a conduit directly to your audience, because it can all be taken away.
Absolutely. So how did you go from DJing to trading? I mean, what was the shift into the finance world like for you?
I was always into investing and trading. Like I bought my first stocks when I was like 10,
Okay.
And joking about it, like, when on my 13th birthday, my parents' friends like gave me like $20 worth of Apple and Disney stock, so I was kind of aware of it and had some good examples, but I was a super shitty trader like for decades. but it was something I could do sometimes when I was DJing and I had that daytime, and I was more of I think a gambler, but I was getting better at it. And when I made the transition, I took it far more seriously. And then, a few years after that, when I was kind of, better at it, I found crypto, late 2016, early 2017. It was like this mythical world of these like 100x daily pumps, and, any trader would be nuts not to go there. And I just, as has happened with many times in my life, I don't know if I'm lucky or what it is. I've just had decent timing in life for things, like I think that for someone to be successful, it's not only their skill or their intelligence or those things, but also you just have to be in the right place at the right time. There's a million people who are more talented than the people you see on TV. But like, if you were a trader and you came in, alts were popping. And so I, was able to make a living of it and to secure enough in that bull run that I was able to sort of focus on it. And, I built a base on Twitter for music. I immediately alienated every one of those people who unfollowed me because they probably were confused as to what the hell was going on.
Sure.
And I think, having even an established base numbers wise, just like, I basically went from like having 40,000 followers in music immediately to 20,000 like 6 months later, because I started talking about crypto and nobody cared.
But that makes you like one of the largest accounts on crypto Twitter at 20,000.
Which is funny, and so I take no credit. It's not like I built it from zero, and I'm not going to pretend that I did. And I had the blue check from music, which I think gave some credibility. So for whatever, combination that is, people, enjoyed what I was putting out there, and it built back quickly with a new community. So I think it was not a hard transition for me. It was all very organic and natural. I never intended, I didn't care about my Twitter numbers. I was just tweeting about the shit I was doing.
Right.
Like when I was doing music, I would tweet about music that I liked. It was just like, I've had Twitter since like 2008, 2009. I've had Twitter since before Bitcoin existed. And so like, it was always just like my outlet to talk about whatever was on my mind. I'm a very stream of conscious person. So when it became crypto that I cared about, I just started talking about it. It wasn't like to gain followers or get anyone to engage. It's just what I was doing,
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I mean, your content is great. It's very authentic. And I think that's why people take to it, and you have mastered the art of interacting. It can be a challenge on Twitter for a mid-size account even to interact with everyone that's messaging them or
really
to get back to people. But I mean, you do a great job of it, and that's, I think I
try. It's really hard now.
I bet. I mean, when it gets to a certain point, it's damn near impossible to keep up. But still, in this case, you are providing a ton of value. And I think that's, that's obviously where your following is continuing to come from, and just trying to find new ways to add to that, like the podcast and the newsletter. And it doesn't hurt that your trade setups have been banging lately. And I know that, I mean, I know
that slowly becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree, which I hate.
Sure.
So more often than not now, I post a setup and I miss it because I posted it. Right. I'll say like, hey, it's breaking out. I'm going to buy the retest. And then
it never retests. Yeah.
So I'm losing myself money generally. And so I've started to like try to do that in a different way, because like I always posted my setups in the exact same manner when nobody cared, or like when, it's funny. The other day, I think I retweeted. I looked back because I talk about Doge all the time. I love it. And like, I retweeted my first tweet about Doge in like November 2017. It was like, I can't stop buying Doge, and it had 0 likes. Right. So
crazy.
I'm like, and with like a ugly chart, and I'm like, here's my like ugly charts, tweeting the same way about my crappy setups in 2017. And now all of a sudden people care. But, trading is it's a gamble, right? You have no idea what's going to happen, and you just got to like keep your risk tight. But yeah, when you make people in this space certainly have like made their careers, certainly in 2017, on 1 or 2 great calls. I found my mentor, like we were friendly, but like posted some like trig setup in 2016 or 2017. It was a random dude on Twitter. I followed it. It went up like 500%. I was like, who is this guy? I need him to help me. And that's how we connected and like have built a business on the side together. You know, it's really, it's crazy what, you know, being, I guess, authentic and having one or two good things go viral can do for you.
Who's your mentor?
Chris Inks is his name. He goes by Texas West Capital.
Oh yeah.
On Twitter. So yeah, I mean, he was a dude that I'd met on Twitter long ago, and we kind of kept in touch. And every time he would post something, I'd be like, that just resonates. You know, a lot of like what comes from me or my mind is sort of a regurgitation of something that he relayed to me many years ago. You know, I think that like he turned me, like he wasn't my mentor, like, how do I open an account and, you know, what's a Bitcoin? It was more like he sharpened the knife, you know, like he really, by watching him, I really like learned to remove the emotion, how not to revenge trade, how not to be a complete fucking spaz when I lost money, you know, things like that. And those are the things that I honed in on and realized were the key to everything, you know, and I didn't kind of, I guess, get that until then. And so then with and without him, I really dug deep into that part of my trading and that part of trader psychology and became sort of obsessed with the topic and went down the rabbit hole, which is why that's what I talk about so much.
You know, one of the things that you said that really stood out to me is that you spend very little time on the charts, right? Your goal is to actually be able to live your life and not live with your face in the computer. And I mean, that's evident, right? You're posting with your kids and with your wife and like living life and doing TikToks, not about pumping Doge, right? But you guys,
I should do that.
So, yeah. Well, I can give you a list of other coins.
I have
but anything besides
TikTok
Doge.
account, so it's not going to go viral.
But no. So, I mean, what's the trick to that? So what is your process like so that you're able to only spend, I mean, I'm sure it's not 10 minutes, but a very short amount of your day in charts?
First of all, a lot of it's forced. Like I just have to do these other things, you know? So like, it wasn't
your
like
kids got to eat. Come on.
Sometimes. It wasn't like I had to accommodate my, I had to accommodate my children to fit in with my trading. I have to, you know, make my trading fit in with my life. So a lot of that is natural. I think also kind of like the meme, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours, become a master idea. I think at some point it clicks for you and there's just not anything else to look at, right? You look at the chart, you see what you want to see, and staring at it's not going to change it. So for me, it's easy to do that, set an alarm and detach. You know, 99% of the time, there's really not that many trades that I want to take right now when it's been like full on alt season, sure, you know, but in general, it's, not that much. So like I'll scan some charts for an hour, set alarms on 30 charts, you know what I mean? And then whichever ones go off first are the trades that I take. And so it's, you know, I can do that in a very short amount of time. And some days I don't even need to look at all because the fact that no alarms are going off means there's nothing for me to look at, you know? But the reason I take the risk, I guess, of posting all that stuff, which you sort of touched on, my family and my wife, because it's generally a bad idea. Like I'm not going to, I get all kinds of threats and hacks and all kinds of crazy stuff and people calling my family and saying really messed up things to my wife. You know what I mean? Is because I think it's important for people to understand that like you can trade and you can be good at trading because you have a life. Like I think you'll probably be worse at trading if you stare at the screens all day because you start trying to will things to happen as opposed to seeing what's actually there. So for me, it's like I kind of have my flow, you know, and especially with COVID, that's been refined tremendously because at least my daughter used to be at school all day. You know what I mean? Now, like I'm her teacher, you know, like we'll get off this podcast and I'll go like teach her a science lesson and then come back and record another podcast, you know, so.
That's awesome though, man. It's awesome to get to have those experiences now. I think that, and my wife and I have talked about this while we're in it. Yeah. I mean, there are days that are definitely more stressful, right? The things that you're adjusting to that, I mean, just responsibilities that you don't necessarily plan to take on if you've got, you know, two parents that have careers.
Yeah.
But looking back on this, I think that there's such an appreciation for this time,
We're going to
like,
miss it.
yeah.
Like not the virus part of it, but like, I think my kids are 1 and 5. So they're an age whenever I talk to people, they'll be like, I would kill to have that age back. And the kids actually like you and like want to spend time with you. And so I'm trying to sort of like view it through that lens, as you said. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's an extremely annoying some of the time. Like 5-year-olds never stop talking. She asks dumb questions all the time, but she's a brilliant kid. She's fun. And like, I'm getting to spend time with her that would have never gotten to spend. And honestly, like that may continue around here for a while, because I don't know what we're going to do come school in 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, I live in the epicenter of this thing,
Yeah.
Which I never would have thought that like I'd be better off sending my kids back to school in Bangladesh than Florida, but that's probably the case right now.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because here things are, I mean, it's open, right? Like in the last 2 weeks, I think there were 7 cases. And I mean, population wise, the country that I'm in has the same population as Orlando, right? So it's apples to apples, probably about the same. Well, maybe not, but but it is a totally different experience. I can't imagine that like I'm applying for a green card in another country, as opposed to going back and trying to figure out how to make this work in America, because I mean, who knows when the end of this is going to come, or what life is going to look like in the next year with all of this that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm, all I can do, I think it's a very strange sort of feeling, because I like to plan ahead, but all I can do basically is like tackle the next week, the next month right now, because listen, I'm pretty pessimistic about the situation in the short term, like in a year, better treatments, chance of a vaccine, all these things. So my approach to COVID at this point is be safe and kick the can, because like in 3 months, maybe you have a 10% chance better of surviving because they have this much better of a treatment. And in 6 months, and that's what, listen, like you can talk to Twitter all day. I talk to doctors and like infectious disease specialists and stuff on my podcast and like in my life every day. And there's not one of them who's like YOLO, you know what I mean? Like that's not the scientific approach. And the reality is that most people have to send their kids back to school. Most people have to go out back to work. Most people have to go whatever. Like I'm in an extremely lucky and fortuitous position that my wife and I both work from home already. We could literally go nowhere and we'll be fine. You know what I mean? Just because of the way our life was structured before this. So I'm going to go ahead and ride that and appreciate the fact that I can, you know what I mean? And I don't begrudge anyone who doesn't, because like, if you got to go to work, your kid has to go to school.
Right.
That's the reality of it. And you hope that you can do that in the safest manner possible. But like, why should I even contribute to like potential spread and be another person out there if I don't have to? It's not really about me in that degree. You know what I mean? I just feel like 4 more people out in the world playing shirtless hoops and like, pretending that that's what's happening across the street for me this morning. 10 dudes, just sweating it up, breathing on each other. It just seems absurd to me, but listen, live your life. I get it. But, I think I mentioned to you, like I know 12 people in the last week that have tested positive for coronavirus personally. It's 2 families. It's my friend, his girlfriend, their 2 moms and daughter. And then, some of my wife's family who are close by, like all 8 of them got it, at a baseball game. So, and everyone's varying degrees of sick. Some are hospitalized. It's the real deal. You know what I mean? Like one of my best friends from childhood who lives here, he got it. He finally tested positive. He's had it for 3 weeks. He was like, I wanted to die. And he's like, I don't think I'm gonna ever be the same. He's like, I don't know. He's like, but there's no getting off the couch for me. He's like, and so I'm gonna go ahead and avoid that,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's somebody we work very closely with, and she's had it for, I mean, it goes and comes. So she is a cancer survivor, and she's in her late 20s, and she got it, and it's just basically lingered since February. And it's been rough for her.
Crazy now. The reports are crazy now of the sort of long-term effects, which is like you see the debates among politicians and people, and it's like very binary. It's like you're dead or you're not, and the dead
Right.
numbers seem fine, so let's go. And it's I think far more nuanced than that, and it really, really diminishes the experience that a lot of people have had. Like if I was 3 months sick and couldn't get off the couch, and people were just like saying, "Yeah, but you're not dead," I don't think that's like an accurate, an accurate way to look at it. So I think it's a lot of incomplete data. It's a lot of I don't knows, and my risk profile in life, trading, everything is like wait for hard data and make a decision based on, an educated decision based on whatever I have. So there's a lot of encouraging things that happen. And then like a week later, they're like, we never said that. That's not true. Or like kids can't get it. Kids can get it. Kids can't transmit it. Kids are going to transmit it. It's so
no one knows. It's all a big question mark at this stage.
Mm-hmm. And I think most people grapple onto the information that suits what they want, right? Like I have a lot of friends who have to send their kids back to school. Mm-hmm. So they look very hard for information that says maybe it's a good idea to send my kid back to school.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
confirmation bias.
Like that's confirmation bias in everything in life. So I think at the end of the day, I just live in a place, here you touched on, you don't want to come back. I mean, I'm not a fan of Trump, obviously. I think that's clear. But then I have Ron DeSantis as the governor who's like, literally might be mentally handicapped. And like, that's, and I'm in a position where I have to choose whether I want to choose what's best for my family or allow him and his government to decide what's best for my children individually. And I think I know who's better equipped to make a decision like that.
Sure.
For now.
Thank you for not making a Tallahassee joke when you mentioned the governor of Florida. I appreciate that.
He's not from there. He's probably the smartest person in Tallahassee, actually.
There we go. So I was going to ask, like, how does someone that's Ivy League educated end up a Gator? Like what?
I grew up in Gainesville. I'm like one of 6 people that grew up in Gainesville, Florida.
I see.
They actually call us ACRs, Alachua County residents, as like a dig. It's like a joke about us.
You get that. When you're born, you get the hat with the fish hook and a pair of jean shorts.
So, but that's right, jorts, my friend. My dad actually went to the University of Florida undergrad. So he was a Gator fan from the 1960s, and then he's a physician. So when he was finishing up his residency in Los Angeles, which is where I was born, he got offered a job at UF. So we moved back to Gainesville when I was 6 months old. So I grew up he was already a Gator fan anyways. He grew up in Miami, but for whatever reason. And so my nephews, his nephews, like everyone kind of went to the University of Florida, and I grew up here. So that's how I ended up a Gator fan. And it's like I went to Penn, and it was like, I'm going to cheer for the Penn Quakers. No, I'm going to stay a Gator fan because it's better sports.
Penn have a football team?
Yes. Their basketball team was good for a while. Yeah, their basketball team was actually, they were in their heyday when I was there in the late 90s. A couple guys went, like Matt Maloney and Jerome Allen went to the NBA briefly, and they made the Sweet 16, Elite 8, something like that, the year before I went to Penn. So basketball was big there, but football was like kind of laughable. I went to one football game in 4 years at Penn.
So getting back into trading, and you'd mentioned this in what you'd said, but is alt season really here? I mean, are you calling this? Do you think this is the alt season that people have been speaking of?
I think I called it last September, and have been trading alts aggressively for 10 months now. Have probably in that time done 7 or 8x my alt account while everyone argued about whether it was alt season or not. First of all, who cares?
Right.
And everyone has a different definition. So people get very angry when I said alt season. They're like, because it's not 2017. So if you believe that alt season has to be exactly what it was then, I think you're going to be very disappointed, right? Sure. I don't think we're going to see 100x's like on a daily basis, whatever. To me, alt season means anytime that Bitcoin's allowing you to trade alt safely. And I think that that's generally been the case. And you are seeing things go crazy. If everything across the board, if there's 10, 20, 30 coins are up 30% in a day, you're in alt season. To me, you know what I mean? So I think there's people who have been scared to trade them because of PTSD from like 2018 and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I get that. Like, it's terrible. And, I get the point that like we can talk about alt season and I can buy something and it can go up 3x, and I can be like, that was amazing, like a 3x trade, and someone else is literally down 97% on that asset,
Right.
because they bought it
It's
in 2017. So it's perspective and timing. But listen, these are the metrics of Altseason, right? Objectively, take Bitcoin out of the market cap and see what's happening. So that, that's rising. Altcoin market cap is rising. Bitcoin dominance, whether you think it's a meme to chart it or not, if it's going up, it's bad for alts. If it's going down, it's good for alts, right?
Correct. Yep.
You can draw patterns and find when that's going to happen, maybe, but it's dropping and has been for a while, So, if those are the metrics that you use, listen, Ethereum broke out. Ethereum has consistently been beating Bitcoin. That's a lot of people's metric for Altseason. And the greatest metric of all is that Doge pumped.
Doge.
So,
and it pumped on retail. That's oh man, that was so exciting to me.
I need to keep going.
Yeah. See, I'm not in Doge. It's one of those that I've always enjoyed watching it. But I like to allocate my dry powder to places that'll either follow or lead Doge. And right now it just seems like there's so many unpumped coins on tokens on Binance that, you throw a dart at something that hasn't yet pumped and you just wait,
Yeah, you just have to have the patience. And that's the thing, is that I think people forget that crappy traders did not do well in Altseason in 2017, right? It's kind of like when you have a horrid ex-girlfriend, but 2 years later, you only remember the good things about her and not the bad things, right? It's like, Altseason was incredible, but unless you timed your exits from alts and back into Bitcoin at the right moments, Bitcoin destroyed Altseason. Like, you'd have Altseason for a week, then Bitcoin would destroy it for 3 weeks, and you'd start again. And it was like, that was sort of the cycle. So if you were just sitting in the alts when Bitcoin was going nuts, you were basically like, running on a treadmill.
Right.
And then there's the people, obviously, like, if you're not a good trader, you're FOMOing into the tops of things because they're going crazy and exiting things that haven't pumped yet. So the coin you exit always pumps right after you leave, and the one that you buy always dumps right after you get in. And that was the pattern, I think, for most people in 2017. And I think even through the altiest alt season of all, most people would have been better buying Bitcoin and waiting and selling it at 19K. Like, if you go back and back calculate what would have happened if you had just done nothing, most people would have done a lot better.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I bought the top in 2017, so I was the end of the retail trend at that time, and then I immediately FOMO'd into all of the shit coins at their highest highs, right? You're talking like,
that's what you got to do.
$2.75 Ripple, because hey, BK shilling it probably makes sense. And then 2018 was a great learning experience for me. You'd mentioned a mentor, and getting in front of people who had traded successfully was a big part of me still being in this industry. And if I wouldn't have found one, God knows, I might not have my second child, depending on how much my wife didn't like me after those losses. But it
was I'm not going to pretend that I liquidated at the top. I was able to trade my way through it and whatever, but that's the nature of any portfolio, anyways, right? Like, if you're a long-term investor in something, my parents went through my friends, all of us, we went through 2008, 2009, 2010. That was pretty equally bad, in its own way. If it was all of your life savings, and if you were just kind of patient and hung out and let it recover, you got back, you know what I mean? So it's all about your timeline and how you view it. Crypto I view as us being extremely, extremely early. So
absolutely.
I love trading, but I'm still an investor first. And I just, I just want to buy it and I want to have it and I don't want to touch it, put it away and not think about it. And I think that's, the better approach for most people. And for me too,
Sure. Well, and I guess everyone has a different strategy, right? So what is it for you when you're looking at altcoins? Are you just trading to increase your Bitcoin stack, or do you buy into fundamentals on a lot of these and, let's say, hold bags based on belief?
I never traded fundamentals at all until recently. And I wouldn't even say that I trade them, but at least I'm cognizant that they exist now. I've very openly been much more bullish on Ethereum than Bitcoin in the last, like I said, kind of since the top of this year. I switched my strategy from dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin to dollar cost averaging into Ethereum. Just because of like the DeFi boom. And, I think that in general, from what we saw before, like if Bitcoin goes, Ethereum will go a little bigger. If Bitcoin dies, Ethereum will die a little harder, right? So it's like I'm taking the Bitcoin on steroids, sort of, I feel. But I just think that there's a lot of use cases and that Ethereum will continue to grow. So like I now consider like Ethereum an investment. I was always just like Bitcoin's my investment. I'm trading all the other stuff to get Bitcoin. Now I, do invest in that. There are projects that I think fundamentals will actually matter, which is the first time I've sort of felt that way, that I like and that I sort of bought the bottom of. And so I've invested in them by playing with the house's money. So like, I don't think there's anything I would buy blind and just put it away as an altcoin, but there are altcoins that I bought. I did so well that I was able to take like 20% of the stack, which ended up being like as much as I invested in it, and putting it into the long-term portfolio and saying, listen, like I'm playing with the casino's money, let it ride because this could be awesome.
Sure.
So I think that I'm a hybrid at this point, but there are not many projects. I mean, I think that there's still a culling is necessary, that like we have to have that sort of tech boom where like, situ boom and bust from the late 90s where most of these companies just go away. They didn't build anything. Unfortunately, it's going to be very painful for a lot of people. Yeah. But those people are going to go from like having lost 97% of their money to having lost 100% of their money at this point. And it's not, but like there's just huge bag holders and communities of coins from 2016 and 17 that probably don't need to exist, and those need to go away actually for all the other ones to be able to rise because that money has to switch coins.
What do you think of this whole DeFi thing? Have you looked into like the yield farming and what's going on with Compound and Balancer? And
I missed it. I'm too old to, I don't know. I feel like yield farming is like above my pay grade and takes a lot of time and probably just doesn't fit. And I think it's really cool for someone who understands it and can do it. It's just not in my risk profile to like, juggle that hard. But I do think that, and it's part of the reason I said with Ethereum, and I think I was somewhat ahead. I missed the train on these like DeFi projects, but the idea of DeFi I've been very bullish on for a long time.
Okay.
Like a huge part of my investment strategy long-term now is holding stable coins for interest. Voyager and BlockFi, like getting 8% interest on my cash instead of 0% in a bank account to someone like me is a huge, huge thing. Sure. I know people in crypto are like 8%, I can do that in 5 minutes, but for like, if you came from investing in stocks and a 10% year was like epic, getting 8% with minimal risk is a pretty big thing. So, I think DeFi is amazing, and I think some of these projects will probably do well, but I also do think it stinks of bubble a little bit. And again, there's going to be some that just get probably destroyed. It's just another one of those things that like inexperienced people are probably going to FOMO into at the last minute. And again, the good ones will last and the rest of them will die, and those people's money and, sentiment towards crypto will die with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least we're getting a nice range out of Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is, like you said, allowing us to play in the mud with the alts, if you want to look at it like that. And it's been nice. I mean, the past few months, I know you've been doing it since September, but I think I started actively trading again in April, and it's just been great. I mean,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing more fun than this. I don't even want it to be fun. I want it to be like to keep roboting my way through it, but it's fun. It's exciting. Like, it's nice to have that feeling where like you actually wake up with more money than you had instead of less.
There you go. So
I'm crazy, but
the sun is sunnier, the bourbon tastes better. It's just life is good right now.
God, if it wasn't Altseason during COVID, I don't know what I would be doing myself.
Oh man. Well, Coinbase is IPOing. This was in your newsletter, which I have been loving since I signed up.
I appreciate that.
A couple of months ago now. I think the last release was 73. So
I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
so
it was in the
you're
70s. It's incredible.
yeah.
I was literally talking to my wife about that this morning. She was like, "How did you do 73 newsletters and like 40 podcasts, and you just started them a few months ago?" I was like, "I don't know." It just, you know how it is, man. You
You're having
start doing
fun.
podcasts and stuff, and it just becomes, it's my job. It's what I,
Yeah,
like if you asked a secretary how many papers they've filed in the last 6 months, they're going to be surprised when you tell them how many it was. This is
for
my
sure.
job,
For
So,
sure.
do people file papers? That was like, I just aged myself so hard right there,
I was
in
gonna
the
say
filing in the filing cabinet.
I wasn't
Um,
gonna say that.
I have a filing cabinet.
Let that one go. Look. I'm a pen and paper kind of guy. Like I don't ever worry about people finding any of my, important information because they would have to be in my physical presence, depending on where I am.
Well, for me with crypto, it's definitely that way.
Yeah. So, but anyways, going back to that IPO, I think the Coinbase IPO is the biggest news for crypto in a very long time. Where, being that you come from traditional markets, where do you see this, and how do you feel that it's going to impact the industry?
So I think it's the second biggest, and the biggest is PayPal and Venmo. I think that's the biggest news that we've ever. I think that's the biggest news we've ever seen in crypto for mainstream adoption. I think the idea that 320 million people, I think, between those two platforms can use a platform they trust, and that platform is actively advertising this as a safe investment or something that you can trade. I think that jumps over all the huge barriers that people have with getting into crypto, right? It's like, where do I store it? How do I buy it? Where do I secure it? And they don't want to go that extra step to sign up for Coinbase or one of these other exchanges and figure it all out. But when it's on a platform they trust, they're gonna buy it. So I think that's number one. For Coinbase, for very similar reasons, I think it's very, very bullish. Obviously, mostly just more mainstream recognition, right? I mean, this is a huge company. It's made a ton of money, and 99% of people in this country have probably never heard of it, right? And it's going to be big news when it's listed. It's going to be on all the financial news sources and everything. So I just want to invest in it so I can tell them not to shut down every time you need to buy something. Hey, get me on the board. I bought your stock. I don't think it's a great company. I don't think it's a great company. So, I don't know that they're the best representation of our space necessarily, but I don't think that matters to your average Jane and Joe. I think that they're just going to see, wow, there's like this crypto thing, and exchanges make a lot of money, right? They're going to do well. They make a lot of money. Like, exchanges make absurd amounts of money no matter how much you win or lose. So,
yeah. Well, and it's also that thing where, well, just as an example with Coinbase is so established and so entrenched, and they've invested in so many different companies that I think they've bought their moat, right? Because people don't really take shots at Coinbase like they should. They're really not held as accountable as they could be. And in America, there's not really anyone that's, made a fair challenge against them. I mean, Gemini is okay, but they're just not on the same level. We dealt a lot with Tagomi, Hashrate did, specifically during our seed round, and we used them for some of the investment that we took in, and they were a great company to work with. I mean, we loved Tagomi. We thought it was a fantastic OTC experience. UX UI was clean, and they sold to Coinbase, and we immediately were like, we're like there's no redemption here. Like, for us as a mining company, especially, Coinbase is the evil empire, right?
Right.
And I hope they do work on improvement. I hope that there is.
They need to represent us well.
To get better. Yeah, and they're everyone's first experience. I mean, in reality, when someone in America is getting into crypto, Coinbase, at least before Venmo and PayPal, Coinbase was their first experience. Now that might not be the case.
Now it's Robinhood and Cash App probably, but still anyone who's, if you're buying more than your $5 worth or whatever, I think that it's Coinbase, like you said. So I think it's very bullish as long as they don't get listed and then implode or, sell all of our information to North Korea
or the US government.
whether their leader's alive or dead, I can't remember, but or the U.S. government. So yeah, I've got my problems with them, but honestly, I think we're a nascent and like small enough space that we all need to cheer for everyone. That's the reality. Like whether you would use it or not, and whether you have problems, and whether you think that one thing is too centralized or this isn't decentralized enough, the tribalism kills us, right? So
Sure.
like I think
that's a good point.
I think that everyone needs to get together and be super psyched and excited and talk about it anytime that like something pushes us into the mainstream. That's what we want, right?
Absolutely. So what's your take on their ticker? What do you think? They going for coin?
I think they'll go for, is coin available? I would think coin. C-base. That sounds like a drug that you would
Yeah,
do
it
to
kind
rave.
of does. Yeah. C-base, base. Yeah, I guess CBS is already taken, obviously.
Yeah, I think CBS is gone. CBA, I don't know. Coin would be a pretty amazing ticker, I think.
Epic one to trade. Man. Well, look, Scott, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for being the inaugural guest on BullishAF. I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome, man. I hope it goes really well. It's awesome.
Thank you. And to everyone who's watched, thanks for tuning in. You can count on more of these. We're excited to keep some good news coming. There's a lot of positive to talk about when it comes to crypto. Yes, it's alt season. Yes, we're all having a good time. Yes, everyone's making money. Hope you guys are enjoying this. And until next time, everyone, stay bullish. Thanks for tuning in to BullishAF, a Hashrate Media production. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. Also, turn on notifications so that you are made aware every time Hashrate releases a new piece of content. You can count on us to provide you with the best interviews and the most actionable information to help you better navigate these cryptocurrency and Bitcoin mining markets. Please remember that all information shared by Hashrate Media on BullishAF or any of our other media properties is strictly for informational and entertainment purposes. It is not to be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors, and we do not presume to give you information that you should be trading on. So do your own research for everything that we discuss. All we're here for is entertainment value, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. Also, if you head over to hashrate.com, you can register for difficulty adjustment, the best email on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and mining. By registering, you are eligible for Hashrate's weekly giveaway of a Ledger Nano S. All you have to do is go to hashrate.com, register your email address. You will automatically be entered into that contest to win a Ledger Nano S each and every week. So go ahead and do that today. There's a link in the show's notes to make it very easy for you. Thank you all again for tuning into the show. And until next time, everyone, stay bullish.